grandpa left his entire fortune to my cousin and gave me a dusty box. My aunt smirked. Guess you weren't that special to him. But when I opened the box and found an old key, my hands trembled. My cousin scoffed. What could that be for? I smirked. Let's just say, the real will isn't what you think. When the lawyer revealed the truth, the entire family went silent. I never expected much from my grandfather's will. Not because I didn't love him. In fact, I might have been the only one in the family who actually did love him, not for his money or what he could provide, but for who he was, just a man with stories, with wisdom, with a way of making you feel like you mattered. And yet, when I sat in that lawyer's office, I realized I had still hoped for something. Not money, not property, just something. Some proof that I hadn't been invisible to him, that all the years we spent together meant as much to him as they had to me. But when Mr. Carter, my grandfather's lawyer, cleared his throat and started reading, my stomach sank. To my grandson, Bradley Wells, he announced, I leave the entirety of my estate, including all financial assets, properties, and investments. I don't know why I was surprised. Of course, Bradley got everything. Across the table, my cousin grinned, already victorious. Cynthia, his mother, my aunt, let out a soft, satisfied sigh, like this had all been inevitable. And to my grandson, Aaron Wells, I sat up, breath held. Mr. Carter reached down, pulled out an object, and set it on the desk. A wooden box. Old. Dusty. Small enough to fit in my hands. There was silence. I felt the air shift in the room, felt the way Cynthia's lips curled at the corners in amusement. Well, she said with a smirk, I suppose we know where you stood in his life. A quiet laugh from Bradley. What's in there? A pocket watch? A fishing lure? I swallowed, keeping my face blank. Inside, I felt my chest tighten in a way I wasn't ready to examine. I reached for the box and opened it. Inside was a single key. Rusty. Old. With a number carved into the side. My fingers curled around it. What could that be for? Bradley scoffed. I forced myself to smirk. Let's just say, the real will isn't what you think. I didn't wait for their reaction. I stood, tucked the key into my pocket, and walked out. Outside, the autumn air was crisp, but I barely felt it. My mind was a storm, thoughts flashing through my head so fast I couldn't hold on to any of them. The key was important. It had to be. Grandpa wouldn't have left me something meaningless. I reached my car and sat there, gripping the key so tightly my knuckles turned white. It took a second, but then I remembered. Grandpa's storage unit. I hadn't been there since I was a kid. He took me once, letting me explore while he sifted through old boxes. At the time, I thought it was just a place for forgotten things, a dusty graveyard for old furniture and photo albums. But now I wasn't so sure. I started the car. I needed to know. The storage facility was nearly empty when I arrived, a few cars parked sporadically near various units. The sun was dipping lower, casting long shadows across the pavement. I found unit 2410 and slid the key into the lock. It turned with a deep, satisfying click. I took a breath and pulled the door open. Inside, most of the space was filled with the same forgotten furniture and boxes I remembered. But in the center of the unit, standing out starkly against the clutter, was a black safe. It was pristine, modern, and sitting on top was an envelope with my name on it. My heart pounded as I tore it open. Aaron, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. And it means the family has already shown their true colors. I never told anyone this, but I saw it all. The way they treated you, the way they dismissed you, the way they fed Bradley's ego while making you feel like an afterthought. But you never let it change you. You stayed kind. You stayed good. And that's why I trust you with what really matters. Inside this safe is my real will. The one they don't know about. The one that changes everything. But before you take it to Carter, there's something else you need to see. Go to the address on the next page. Trust me. Grandpa, my hands were shaking by the time I finished reading. The real will. I reached for the safe, fingers slipping slightly against the cool metal as I opened it. Inside was another envelope, thicker this time. I flipped through the documents inside, my eyes scanning over legal jargon until they landed on the part that made my breath catch. Grandpa had changed his will months before he died. Bradley got nothing. Instead, the entire estate, every cent, every property, every investment, was left to me. The weight of it crashed down on me all at once. Grandpa had never abandoned me. He had never valued Bradley more. He had just played the long game, knowing exactly how the family would react. I exhaled shakily and looked at the second envelope. An address. I didn't recognize it, but I was about to find out. The drive was 3 hours, straight out of Charleston and into a quiet town outside Savannah. The address led me to a small house, quaint, well-kept, with a white fence and a garden full of wildflowers. I hesitated at the front step. Then, with a deep breath, I knocked. The door opened almost immediately, and I froze. An elderly woman stood there, eyes wide, hand trembling against the doorframe. She looked at me like she knew me. Aaron, she whispered. My throat went dry. Yes. Tears welled in her eyes. She stepped forward, covering her mouth with one hand, as if holding in a sob. Oh, she breathed. Oh, sweetheart. I felt the ground tilt beneath me. I'm sorry, do I know you? She let out a choked laugh, shaking her head. Of course you don't. They made sure of that. I stared. They? She reached for something on a nearby table, a framed photograph. She turned it toward me, and my heart nearly stopped. It was a picture of her, standing beside my grandfather, smiling. "Who are you?" I asked hoarsely. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I'm Eleanor," she said. "Your grandfather's wife." The word wife echoed in my head, but it didn't make sense. I stared at her, trying to piece it together, trying to wrap my head around the fact that this stranger, this woman I had never seen before, was looking at me with tears in her eyes like I was someone she had lost and found all over again. "My grandfather's wife?" I repeated, my voice hollow. She gave a trembling nod. "We were married for over 40 years. My legs felt unsteady beneath me. That wasn't possible. I had never heard of her. No one in my family had ever mentioned a woman named Eleanor. And yet, here she was, standing in front of me, holding a picture of my grandfather like it was the most natural thing in the world. My throat tightened. "I don't understand." Eleanor swallowed hard, blinking back the emotion in her eyes. Then, as if remembering herself, she stepped aside, gesturing toward the inside of the house. "Please," she said softly, "come in." I hesitated, but my feet moved on their own. The house smelled like lavender and old books, warm and familiar in a way I couldn't explain. The furniture was modest, nothing like the extravagant decor of my family's homes. It was a lived-in place, a real home, not just a display of wealth. She led me to the living room and motioned for me to sit. I lowered myself onto the couch, still gripping the envelope Grandpa had left me, still trying to make sense of any of this. Eleanor sat across from me in a worn armchair, hands folded in her lap. "I don't know where to start," I admitted. She gave me a small, knowing smile. "I do." For a long moment, she simply looked at me, as if memorizing my face. Then, with a quiet sigh, she began. "Your grandfather and I met when we were young," she said. "Long before Robert and Cynthia got their claws in him. We fell in love fast, and for a while, we were happy." She reached for a small wooden box on the coffee table, opening it carefully. Inside were old photographs, yellowed with age. She pulled one out and handed it to me. I took it with shaky hands. It was a picture of my grandfather, younger than I had ever seen him. He was standing on a beach, the wind in his hair, laughing. And beside him, Eleanor. She was beautiful, her eyes bright, her smile unguarded. They looked happy. "They didn't approve of me," she continued, watching my reaction. "Robert and Cynthia, I mean. They thought your grandfather should marry someone with money. Someone with the right family name." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "And Henry, he was young. He loved me, but he also loved them. He tried to make both things work. But the pressure was relentless." I could hear the pain in her voice, the weight of something she had carried for decades. I gripped the photo tightly. "What happened?" She let out a breath. "They gave him an ultimatum. Leave me, or be cut off." I felt something twist in my stomach. I knew Robert and Cynthia were manipulative, but this was a whole other level. "He didn't leave me," she said quietly. "Not really. He told them what they wanted to hear. Told them we had split up, but we never divorced." She gave a sad smile. "We just lived separately. He kept me safe. He made sure I had everything I needed. But he had to keep me a secret." I shook my head slowly. "So all those years, he was married, and they never knew?" "They knew," she corrected. "They just pretended I didn't exist. It was easier for them to erase me than to accept the truth." My mind was racing, trying to process the implications of what she was saying. If she and Grandpa had still been married when he died. I looked down at the envelope in my hands. The real will. I suddenly understood why Grandpa had left it with me. Why he had trusted me and no one else. This changed everything. Eleanor watched me carefully. "You've seen it, haven't you?" she asked gently. "The will." I nodded slowly. Something in her expression shifted. Relief, maybe, or something deeper. "Then I suppose it's time." She reached into the box again, pulling out a small, leather-bound notebook. "I kept everything," she said softly. "Every letter. Every promise he made. Every plan he had." She handed it to me. I took it hesitantly, flipping open the first page. And what I saw made my breath hitch. It was Grandpa's handwriting. "If anything happens to me, tell Aaron the truth. He's the only one who will understand." The weight of it settled over me like a heavy stone. I looked up at Eleanor, my chest tight. And I knew what I had to do. I sat there, staring at the words written in my grandfather's familiar, slightly uneven handwriting. "Tell Aaron the truth. He's the only one who will understand." Eleanor's presence across from me was steady, waiting. Not pressuring me, not urging me forward, just waiting. And I realized that she must have been waiting like this for years, for someone to finally listen. I carefully flipped through the pages of the notebook, skimming the years of hidden letters, the plans Grandpa had made to keep her safe, to keep their life together from being erased by the greedy hands of his own family. And then I reached the last page. It was dated only a month before he passed. "Aaron, if you're reading this, then you've done exactly what I knew you would. You followed the truth. You always were the only one who cared about what was real, not what was convenient. By now, you know the will they saw was a lie. The real one is yours to bring forward. But I need you to do one last thing for me. Make them face it." I let out a slow breath, my grip tightening around the notebook. Eleanor watched me carefully. "You have a choice, Aaron," she said softly. "You can walk away from all of this. Keep what he left you. Let them think they won and live your life. Or She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to, because I already knew what I was going to do. 2 days later, I walked into the lawyer's office. Bradley was already there, lounging in his chair like a king awaiting his coronation. Cynthia sat beside him, a satisfied smirk on her face, while Robert checked his watch impatiently. I took my seat without a word. Mr. Carter, the lawyer, entered moments later, a thick stack of documents in his hands. He glanced at me with something that looked suspiciously like approval. Cynthia let out a dramatic sigh. Can we get this over with? I assume we're finalizing the paperwork for my son's inheritance. Mr. Carter adjusted his glasses. Actually, he said, his voice calm, professional. There's been a development. Bradley, who had been scrolling through his phone, finally looked up. Development. I leaned back in my chair and folded my arms. Yeah, a pretty big one. Mr. Carter placed the real will on the table and slid it forward. Henry Wells made a legal amendment to his estate before his passing, he announced. This document overrides the previous version. Robert frowned. That's impossible. Mr. Carter ignored him and continued. As per the revised will, the entire Wells estate, including all financial assets, properties, and investments, has been left to Aaron Wells. Silence. A long, heavy silence. Then, Cynthia let out a sharp, breathy laugh. No, that can't be right. She turned to me, eyes narrowing. What did you do? I tilted my head. What did I do? I repeated. Nothing. This is his decision. Bradley shot forward, grabbing the papers, his eyes scanning the lines frantically. This is a joke, he muttered. There's no way. He turned back to Mr. Carter, jabbing a finger at the will. This is fake. It has been notarized and witnessed, Mr. Carter said smoothly. And I have already verified its authenticity. Bradley's face turned red. So I get nothing? Mr. Carter calmly flipped through the pages. That's correct. Cynthia's breath was coming fast and shallow, her carefully composed exterior cracking right in front of me. Robert, the ever-calculated one, was the first to regain his composure. We'll contest this, he said, his voice tight. We have a right. No, you don't, I interrupted. All three of them turned to me, their fury barely contained. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. See, contesting a will requires proof that the deceased was either coerced or not of sound mind when they made their decisions. But Grandpa, he wasn't just of sound mind. He anticipated that you'd try this. I tapped the notebook I had brought with me, the one filled with letters and documents, the one that proved everything. He documented everything. The manipulation, the way you pushed him to favor Bradley, the way you tried to erase Eleanor. Cynthia stiffened. Who? I smiled. There it is. Oh, you don't remember? I said. Grandpa's wife. The color drained from her face. Ah, I murmured. So you do remember. Bradley looked between us, confused. Who the HLL is Eleanor? I ignored him. Grandpa never left her. I continued. He just played along with your little charade so you wouldn't try to ruin her life. But you already knew that, didn't you? Robert's jaw was tight. His hands clenched into fists. Cynthia shot up from her chair. You're lying, she spat. I turned to Mr. Carter. Would you do the honors? He slid another document onto the table. This is Henry Wells's marriage certificate. Legally binding. Never annulled. Cynthia stared at it like it might burn her. And, Mr. Carter continued, because they were legally married at the time of his passing, Eleanor Wells is entitled to half of his estate. The room went utterly silent. Robert's face had gone completely slack, like all his calculations, all his decades of maneuvering, had just crumbled beneath him. Bradley finally seemed to grasp what was happening. So what does that mean? For us? I let the satisfaction settle deep in my bones before answering. It means you get nothing, I said simply. Bradley let out a disbelieving laugh. You can't just take everything from us. I shrugged. Funny. That's exactly what you did to Eleanor. Cynthia slammed her fist onto the table. You think you've won? She hissed. You think this will change anything? I stood, tucking the documents back into my bag. Oh, I don't think, Cynthia. I turned to Mr. Carter. When does the eviction process begin? Cynthia froze. What? The family home is part of the estate, I said, letting the truth sink in. Which means it belongs to me now. And since I'm feeling generous, I'll give you a week to pack your things before I change the locks. Bradley shot up. You wouldn't dare. I gave him a pointed look. He swallowed hard, the full weight of the situation finally hitting him. Cynthia was still staring at me, her chest rising and falling rapidly. You'll regret this, she whispered. I let a slow smile spread across my face. I really don't think I will. And with that, I turned and walked out of the office, stepping into the fresh air, where Eleanor was waiting for me. I handed her the notebook. It's over, I said softly. She took it, her fingers trembling slightly, and let out a deep, shuddering breath. For the first time in decades, she was free. And for the first time in my life, so was I.